Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker. Please make sure you're subscribed to the All This Math YouTube channel. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, hit the like button. Hit the like button if you haven't already. All right. If you have a comment, drop a comment down below. Or if you have any questions as I explain how to do this problem behind us, please drop your question in the comment section so I'll know what it is you don't understand. And I might make another video just pertaining to your question. Also, please share this video with some other people. All right. And also, shout out to the ancestor Omowale Malcolm X. Right. We are in 2025. This is the 100th. This year is the 100th year of commemorating his birth, which was in 1925. May 19th, 1925 was the birth of Malcolm X. And we are in the year 2025. It's about to be May, right? So his 100th birthday is right around the corner. Do your research on Malcolm X. Plenty of books have been written about him. Make sure you read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Also, listen to some of his speeches from the 1960s and the 1950s. All right. Read some of his speeches. You can find those on YouTube as well. All right. Ballad of the Bullet, Message to the Grassroots. Two I highly recommend. He had more speeches than that, but those are two that definitely come to mind and really resonate with me and have taught me a lot. Also, The Last Message. Let me say three. Ballad of the Bullet, Message to the Grassroots, and The Last Message. Those three. Those three. Start with those three, right? And then go down the rabbit hole and keep listening to other speeches from the ancestors. All right, now HSPT math. HSPT is an acronym, stands for High School Placement Test. This is an example of the type of question that you might see on the high school placement test for eighth graders that attend Catholic schools and parochial schools to find out where they would place in ninth grade at another Catholic or parochial school, or the same one if that school goes on to high school. All right, so let's read it. This is a word problem. All right, don't get intimidated. Right, we have to stop getting intimidated by word problems. Right, we gotta stop getting intimidated. Right, it's just a math problem with words in it. That's all it is. All right. Now, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna translate it to an equation anyway, to a simple, straightforward equation. But we gotta develop that skill and know how to do that. So it says the ratio. Okay, ratios. Ratios are something that we have to understand how to work with and how to use. A ratio is just a fraction. The ratio of boys to girls in a class is 3 to 2. There's a 3 to 2 ratio. That means for every 3 boys in a class, there are 2 girls. All right. For every 3 boys in a class, there are 2 girls. So that means for every 6 boys, there will be 4 girls. Right. For every 9 boys, there would be 6 girls, right? 3 to 2, right? 3 to 2. The total number of students in the class is 30. Altogether, the total number of students in the class is 30. How many girls are in the class? The class has 30 people. Based on this ratio, how many of the students are girls? Now, two things I want you to think of whenever you see a ratio problem. There are two ways to approach ratios. We either deal with ratios in terms of part to part, in this case, girls to boys. Well, actually, no, boys to girls, because the order matters. The order matters because boys to girls follows the order of the numbers, right? Boys to girls, right? That's called part to part. And then you got part to whole, right? Or part to total. So this is a part to part ratio, 3 to 2. But if we flipped it into a part to whole, right? Let's say part to whole. Part to whole would be, instead of 3 to 2, it would be 3 to 5. If it was part to whole, it'd be 3 to 5. Now let's pause for a moment and make sure you understand where that 5 came from. Where did the 5 come from? All right, so let's say there are 5 students, right? For every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. For every 3 boys, there are 2 girls. That's what the ratio means. How many students is that altogether? That's 5, because it's 3 boys and 2 girls, right? Now, let's say we got a group of 5. How many are boys? If boys are the part and the whole is 5, then for every 3 boys, it's 3 boys out of 5 students in total, right? This is the way we need to use this in order to solve the problem. Or at least this is the way that I'm solving the problem, using a part to whole relationship, not the part to part relationship. I'm using the part to whole relationship because I think it's easier to do it that way, because it tells you the total number of students in the class, right? So now dig this. If we deal with part to whole, boys to girls, the ratio is ratios and fractions are the same thing. So it's going to be 3/5, right? Boys to the whole, right? Is equal to boys to the whole, right? Now, we don't know how many boys there are out of 30 students. Now we're looking for how many girls there are out of 30 students. But if we figure out how many boys there are that altogether, then we could just subtract that number from 30 because it's only boys and girls in the class, right? We got boys and girls in the class. If we figure out how many boys are all together, then the difference must be the number of girls. All right, so that's one way we could do it. Now, if we got, again, boys to the whole amount. Now they're saying the whole amount in the whole class is 30. So that means we're trying to solve for this variable. So if it was 5 students, there'll be 3 boys out of 5 students altogether. But because the class has 30 students, we want to know how many boys there would be out of the total of 30 students. So what I've done is I've taken this information, a lot of this information, and condensed it into just this proportional equation. A proportion is when you have a ratio equal to another ratio, right? So 3/5 is equal to b over 30. It's a lot of ways I could do this now. I could just look at the relationship between the numbers, the denominators. I know 5 times 6 is 30. So therefore, I would do 3 times 6 to get this, which means B is 18. So the number of boys got to be 18, right? But what if I did it in a more traditional algebraic way? Let me rewrite it. 3/5 is equal to B over 30. So 3 out of 5 boys out of the number of boys out of 5, a group of 5 students is equal to the number of boys out of 30 students, right? What if I did the Malcolm X method, right? So I got my Malcolm X t-shirt on. I call this the Malcolm X method. Textbooks call it the cross product property. Multiply diagonally like that, multiply diagonally like that. 5 times B is 5B. Bring the equal sign down, bring the equal sign down. 3 times 30 is 90, right? Solve for B. Isolate B by itself, get rid of this 5. How do we get rid of things when we're doing algebra? We do the opposite operation. What's the opposite of doing 5 times B? Dividing by 5. Dividing by 5. That's the opposite. So we're going to divide by 5 and we keep it balanced. We divide by 5 on the left. We divide by 5 on the right. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we have 1B. Math language. 1B and B mean the same thing. 1B and B mean the same thing. So that means I could just write B down here. Now, we got to know our division facts. 90 divided by 5 is 18. Now, in this particular test, you are not allowed to use a calculator. So if you didn't know that 90 divided by 5 was 18, you'd have to, I don't know, do long division or something. 5, write your 90, 5 goes into 9, 1 time, 5 times 1 is 5, subtract 9 minus 5 is 4, bring the 0 down, 5 goes into 40, 8 times, 5 times 8 is 40, boom, 0, remainder 0. So that's 18, right? My suggestion is to memorize your division facts. So you know that 90 divided by 5 is 18. All right. So the number of boys is 18. This is not the final answer. Be clear. This is not the final answer because what they ask you, they ain't ask you about how many boys were in the class. They ask you how many girls in the class. But if you got boys and girls in the class, it's 30 students altogether. If 18 of them are boys, how many are girls? 30 altogether minus 18 is equal to 12. 12 girls. 12 girls. And that's not the only way to do this problem, right? We could have did it in other ways. I could have kept it in the part-to-part relationship. I'd have to think about how to do that, though, but I'm pretty sure I could do it that way. But the part-to-whole method is something you got to think about. And let me just reiterate that. When you deal with ratios, understand there's either going to be a part-to-part relationship or a part-to-whole relationship. Meaning the two things, like boys to girls, the relationship between the boys to girls, or it could be a relationship between the boys to everybody, or girls to everybody, right? Part to whole, right? Then you use this information to set up your equation, right? You can either look at the relationship between the denominators and numerators to figure out your answer, or you could do it in a more traditional algebraic way. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. We got 18 doing it that way. 5 times 6 is 30. Well, what's 3 times 6? 18. Then, or you can do it like this. You still solve for B. You get B equals 18. Then you know how many boys will be in the class. So again, we got to use some common sense and some critical thinking. If it's 18 boys in the class and it's 30 students altogether, how many girls in there? 30 minus the 18 is going to give you 12. All right. So once again, shout out to the ancestor. I'm Malcolm X. Make sure you do your research on Malcolm X if you're not that familiar with him. Read his speeches, listen to his speeches. What did I say earlier? Ballot of the bullet, message to the grassroots, The last message, start out with those three. That's going to get you right. Then go down the rabbit hole. Listen to the other speeches. Also, read work that has been written about him that is of quality. Read his autobiography, the autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley. All right. Make sure you subscribe to the All This Math YouTube channel. Like the video. Share the video with some other people. Drop some comments in the comment section. Also, if you have questions on anything I covered, anything in red, drop your questions in the comments and I'll address it. I may make another video just based on your specific question. All right. Peace. See you on the next video.